Excluded from my cousin's wedding to avoid drama, I took a vacation. When the wedding turned into a disaster, my family begged for my help. "You need to help pay for this." I, 31M, never thought my family would choose sides so decisively until my cousin's wedding became the battlefield where years of resentment finally erupted. The text came on a Tuesday evening while I was reviewing quarterly reports at my marketing firm. My aunt's name flashed on my phone screen, and I almost ignored it. Our family had been walking on eggshells around each other for months. Ever since the incident at Christmas dinner when my ex-girlfriend showed up uninvited and caused what my mother diplomatically called an unfortunate scene. My aunt got straight to the point. She told me that after careful consideration, the family had decided it would be best if I didn't attend my cousin's wedding next month. She explained that my presence might create unnecessary drama, given that my ex would be there as someone's plus one. The family thought it would be easier for everyone if I simply stayed away. I set my phone down and stared at the wall of my office for a long time. 27 years of family gatherings, birthday parties, and holiday celebrations, and they were cutting me out of the most important day in my cousin's life because of someone who had cheated on me and left me for my former best friend. The irony wasn't lost on me. I had been the victim of betrayal, yet somehow I had become the problem that needed to be managed. I called my cousin directly that night. The conversation was stilted and uncomfortable. He admitted that it wasn't his decision, but that the family had pressured him. His fiance's family would be there, and they wanted everything to go smoothly. He seemed genuinely sorry, but made it clear that the decision was final. My mother called the next day with the same rehearsed explanation. She asked me to understand that it was just one day, and that we could celebrate together afterward. She suggested I take a nice vacation instead, maybe use the time to clear my head and move forward. That's when the idea crystallized. I had been saving for a down payment on a house, but suddenly a different plan seemed more appealing. If my family wanted me gone during their precious wedding weekend, I would make sure they knew exactly how gone I could be. I booked a 2-week luxury vacation to New Zealand. Not just any vacation, I went all out. First-class flights, 5-star accommodations, helicopter tours, wine tastings, adventure sports, the works. I posted every moment on social media, making sure my family could see exactly how much fun their unwanted black sheep was having while they dealt with their drama-free celebration. The wedding was on a Saturday. I was bungee jumping off the Kawarau Gorge Bridge while they were probably taking photos. I posted a video of myself mid-jump with the caption, "Living my best life," and tagged it with the date. My phone started buzzing Sunday morning New Zealand time. At first, I ignored it. I was in the middle of a wine tour in central Otago, surrounded by stunning vineyard views and completely disconnected from whatever family drama was unfolding back home. But the calls kept coming. Finally, I checked my messages during lunch at a winery overlooking Lake Wanaka. 17 missed calls, 12 voicemails, 34 text messages. The first voicemail was from my aunt, her voice tight with barely controlled panic. She told me there had been some problems at the wedding and asked me to call her back immediately. The second was from my mother, asking if I had seen the news and demanding to know where I was. By the fourth voicemail, my cousin himself was on the line, his voice breaking as he begged me to come home and help fix what he called the biggest disaster of our lives. I sat in that vineyard for an hour, reading through the messages and piecing together what had happened. Apparently, my ex-girlfriend and my former best friend had gotten spectacularly drunk and decided the wedding reception was the perfect time to air all their dirty laundry about our relationship. They had announced to the entire gathering how they had been having an affair for months before I found out, complete with intimate details that horrified both families. But that was just the beginning. My ex had then gotten into a screaming match with the bride's sister, who had apparently made some comment about loyalty and cheating. The fight escalated until my ex threw a glass of red wine across the head table, staining the bride's dress and several other guests. The police were called when my former best friend tried to fight the bride's brother. The reception was shut down early. The photographer left. The expensive wedding cake was destroyed in the chaos. Several guests demanded refunds for their gifts. But the real kicker came in the final messages. The venue was threatening to sue for damages. The catering company was demanding additional payment for cleaning and overtime. The photographer was refusing to deliver the wedding photos until additional fees were paid for the hostile work environment. My family was looking at thousands of dollars in unexpected costs, and they had all decided that since I was family, I needed to help pay for the disaster. I ordered another glass of Pinot Noir and watched the sun set over the lake while I considered my response. The next morning, I called my aunt back. She immediately launched into a detailed explanation of all the financial damage and how much money each family member needed to contribute to make things right. She emphasized that this was about family responsibility and that we all needed to pull together. I listened patiently until she finished. Then I told her I was sorry to hear about the problems, but that I was currently in New Zealand and wouldn't be able to help with anything until I returned from my vacation. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She asked me to repeat what I had just said. When I confirmed that I was indeed on vacation in New Zealand, as they had suggested, she began to sputter about family emergencies and responsibilities. I reminded her gently that I had been specifically excluded from this family event to avoid drama. I pointed out that their plan had obviously failed spectacularly, but that wasn't my problem since I hadn't been there. I suggested that perhaps they should ask the people who had actually caused the drama to help pay for the damages. Over the next few days, the calls intensified. Each family member tried a different approach. My mother went with guilt, reminding me of everything the family had done for me over the years. My uncle tried anger, accusing me of being selfish and vindictive. My cousin attempted heartbreak, describing how devastated his new wife was and how this was ruining the start of their marriage. I listened to them all with the same response. I was sorry for their troubles, but I had been specifically excluded from the event, and I couldn't be responsible for problems at a wedding I hadn't attended. I suggested they take up their financial concerns with the people who had actually caused the damage. Update 1. I returned home 2 weeks later, rested and tanned, to find my family in complete chaos. The wedding disaster had exposed years of underlying tensions and resentments that went far beyond my situation. Apparently, several family members had been harboring grudges about various slights and perceived injustices, and the stress of the wedding expenses had brought everything to the surface. My aunt was barely speaking to my mother because she felt my mother hadn't contributed enough money to the cleanup costs. My uncle was furious with my cousin for inviting my ex in the first place. The bride's family was threatening to cut ties entirely unless the damages were paid in full. But the most interesting development was that my ex-girlfriend and former best friend had broken up spectacularly during their post-wedding hangover. Apparently, their grand romantic gesture of public honesty had revealed some uncomfortable truths about their relationship that neither of them had been prepared to face. My cousin showed up at my apartment a few days after I returned. He looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. He sat on my couch and told me everything that had happened, including details that hadn't made it into the frantic voicemails. Apparently, my ex had been drinking heavily before the ceremony even started. She had been making snide comments about me throughout the day, telling anyone who would listen about how I had been a terrible boyfriend and how much happier she was now. My former best friend had been encouraging her, adding his own commentary about my supposed shortcomings. When the reception started, they had positioned themselves at a table near the head table and continued their running commentary on my character. The bride's family, who knew nothing about our history, began asking questions about who they were and why they were being so openly hostile about someone who wasn't even there. That's when my ex decided to tell the whole story, loudly and publicly, with enough intimate details to make everyone uncomfortable. She seemed to think she was justifying her behavior, but instead she was revealing herself to be vindictive and cruel. The bride's sister had finally told her to stop talking about me at someone else's wedding. That's when the screaming match started. My cousin looked exhausted as he finished the story. Then he asked me directly if I would consider helping with the financial mess. I told him I understood his position, but that actions had consequences. The family had made a choice to exclude me based on the assumption that I would cause drama. Their choice had backfired, but that didn't make me responsible for the results. He nodded slowly and admitted that he was beginning to understand why I felt the way I did. Then he told me something that surprised me. Several family members had started questioning whether they had made the right decision about the wedding invitation. My aunt, in particular, was beginning to realize that they had blamed the wrong person for potential drama. Update 2. 3 months later, my family dynamics had shifted completely. The financial stress of the wedding disaster had forced everyone to reevaluate their priorities and relationships. My aunt and uncle ended up divorcing over the financial disagreements, with the wedding costs being the final straw in years of money-related arguments. My cousin and his wife had managed to work through their issues, partly by cutting ties with several toxic family members who had contributed to the chaos. They came to understand that surrounding themselves with drama-prone people was more damaging than excluding those people from their lives. Most surprisingly, my mother had started seeing things from my perspective. She admitted that the family had scapegoated me for problems that had nothing to do with me. She apologized for going along with the decision to exclude me and acknowledged that they had been wrong. My ex-girlfriend had moved out of state after the wedding disaster, apparently unable to face the social consequences of her behavior. My former best friend had been essentially ostracized by our entire social circle after people realized what kind of person he really was. But the most satisfying development came when my aunt called me 6 months after the wedding. She had been struggling financially since her divorce and was facing some serious money problems. She asked if I might be willing to loan her some money to help her get back on her feet. I listened to her request politely, then reminded her that I had recently spent my savings on a vacation to New Zealand. I suggested that perhaps she should ask someone who had been invited to the wedding for help, since family members who attend family events are obviously the ones expected to provide financial support during difficult times. The silence on the other end of the line was almost identical to the one from New Zealand, but this time I was sitting in my own living room, completely comfortable with my decision. Update 3. A year later, I received an unexpected invitation in the mail. My cousin was throwing a first anniversary party for himself and his wife, and they wanted me to be there. The invitation was handwritten and included a personal note apologizing again for the wedding situation and explaining how much they had learned about family loyalty in the past year. I attended the party, which was a small, intimate gathering of people who had genuinely supported the couple through their difficult first year of marriage. Notably absent were several family members who had been prominent at the original wedding, including my aunt and uncle. During the party, my cousin pulled me aside and thanked me for teaching him an important lesson about consequences and accountability. He said that watching me maintain my boundaries had helped him learn to do the same in his marriage and other relationships. His wife, who I had barely known before the wedding, told me she was grateful that I hadn't contributed to cleaning up the mess from their reception. She said it had forced them to confront the real sources of drama in their lives and make some difficult but necessary decisions about who they wanted in their inner circle. As I drove home that night, I reflected on how dramatically my family relationships had changed. I had lost some connections that had turned out to be more toxic than I had realized, but I had strengthened others that were based on genuine respect and understanding. The incident had cost me some money and caused me significant emotional stress, but it had also taught me the value of standing up for myself and refusing to accept responsibility for other people's poor choices. Most importantly, I had learned that sometimes the most powerful response to being excluded is to make your absence so noticeable and your independence so obvious that people are forced to confront their own assumptions about who needs whom. I never did buy that house I had been saving for, but the investment in my own self-respect turned out to be far more valuable than any property could have been. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and share it with friends or family who might enjoy it too. Your support means a lot. And if you have any thoughts, questions, or story ideas, drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear from you. See you in the next story.